Hey guys, tonight we're not diving into a golden palace or drifting gently through a sleepy Japanese garden. Nope, we're heading straight into one of the least cozy places in human memory, the Crusades. And before you sigh, thinking this will be about shiny knights and noble quests. No. This is about blisters, dehydration, bad theology, worse hygiene, and spiritual paperwork gone very, very wrong. And spoiler alert, you're not going to survive. Not because of a sword to the chest or a Saracen ambush, but because you'll probably trip over your own guilt while trying to navigate holy intentions through very unholy mud. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also leave a comment. Where are you listening from tonight and what time is it there? Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing in a crowd, not a festival kind of crowd, more like a smelly wall of desperate men kind of crowd. It's spring somewhere in Europe, sometime in the late 1090s, and you're listening to a man shout about salvation. He's standing on a barrel. He looks like he hasn't eaten in days, but his voice is clear. God wills it, he cries, over and over, and the people around you start to cheer like he just handed out free bread. You're not sure what just happened, but someone puts a cross-shaped patch in your hand and suddenly you're a crusader. The road starts with excitement. You pack up a few things, a crust of bread, a knife, maybe a charm from your local priest, who says it'll protect you from arrows. Spoiler, it won't. You say goodbye to your village, which is mostly goats and gossip, and march off with your new companions. Some are farmers, some are failed knights, and one is definitely a baker, who regrets everything. The first few days are thrilling. You've never traveled this far before. Birds you've never seen, trees that aren't your trees. Then the food runs out, the water turns, your shoes start to disintegrate. You trade your belt for a cup of something that might be wine or maybe vinegar. You're too thirsty to care. The sun doesn't stop. It pushes down on you like a judgment. You realize your wool tunic was a terrible choice. A man from Normandy passes out from heat. He's revived by a splash of questionable water and an onion. That becomes a story you'll tell again and again. The onion miracle. It's not funny, but everyone laughs anyway. What else are you going to do? The truth is you don't know where you're going. Someone ahead of you swears Jerusalem is just a few more weeks. You've already walked for 2 months. At night, the camp smells like sweat and regrets. You fall asleep next to a man, sharpening a spoon into a weapon. Somewhere along the way you realize there's no grand map, just rumors and relics. A priest carries a toe bone, supposedly from St. Peter. He insists it glows faintly when enemies are near. It never glows. But it's comforting in a strange way. You pass through villages that want nothing to do with you. You knock on doors, some open, some don't. Sometimes there's a meal, sometimes there's an angry dog. One night you sleep in a barn next to a cow who snores louder than any man. You name her Clementine. She becomes your favorite travel companion. Eventually the terrain changes. Hills get steeper, paths narrow, your feet are swollen, your sandals are thread, and your stomach sounds like a distant drum. Still, you keep walking. Everyone keeps walking. It's what crusaders do, even when they forget why. You start to notice who's missing. The boy with the flute. Gone. The woman who dressed as a man to follow her husband. Found out. Sent back. Probably. You're not sure. The group is smaller now, quieter, meaner. A man beside you mutters prayers all day. Another just mutters. You overhear one group planning to abandon the route and find their own holy place. One man swears he saw a burning bush and takes it as a sign to head west. No one follows him, and then, just when your hope begins to crack like your skin, a whisper runs through the line. We're getting close. You don't know if it's true, but it's enough to lift your boots a little higher, Enough to make your shoulders feel a touch lighter. Enough to keep going, because after all, you tell yourself, this is the road to salvation, even if it feels suspiciously like the road to an early grave. You wake up with your mouth full of dust and your dreams full of heat. The kind of dream where you're drinking water from a crystal basin, only to realize you're chewing on the corner of your own tunic. Morning has not improved anything. The camp smells like old bread, wet wool, and the kind of human proximity no modern subway rider could endure. You roll over to find someone has stolen one of your boots. Again. You're somewhere near the Balkans now, or maybe you passed them. Geography is a rumor out here. What you do know is this. Your knees hurt, your feet scream, and someone is trying to cook something unidentifiable in a dented copper pot. The smell might be rat or hope. It's hard to say. The priest is back at it, the one with the glowing bone that never glows. He's gathered a circle and is reciting the story of Noah's Ark with surprising detail, including an addendum where the Ark stops for snacks in what he swears is modern-day Serbia. You don't correct him, mostly because you're too tired, and partly because correcting people tends to end in knife fights lately. Today's goal is a small river, or was it a town? Either way, your group trudges toward it like pilgrims chasing the last sausage at a medieval banquet. Your water skin is empty, your hands are shaking, and your patience, well, you traded that for a dried plum 2 days ago. Someone behind you starts singing. Not a hymn, not a song of battle, just a lullaby, soft, from some village they probably can't go back to anymore. It's oddly comforting, like the world forgot to be cruel for just 1 minute. Then the rain starts. It's not gentle. It's not poetic. It's that sudden, horizontal, slap-you-in-the-face rain that makes you question every decision since birth. Within seconds, you're soaked. Your wool tunic clings like a regret. The trail becomes sludge. Your companions become silhouettes of misery. Still you walk, you pass a shrine, or what used to be one. The roof has collapsed, the walls are etched with symbols you don't recognize. One of the knights insists it's a pagan altar. Another insists it's Roman. A third says it's just an outhouse with ambition. You don't care. You duck under it for cover and immediately regret it. Something squishy lives there. When the rain finally stops, it doesn't feel like a blessing. Say it feels like a wet joke. The mud now sucks at your boots, well, your boot, and every step feels like a betrayal. You consider seriously whether walking barefoot in damp hay would be better. You try it, it's not. You come across another group of Crusaders. They look worse than you. One is missing an eye, one is missing pants. You ask what happened, they shrug. Germany, one says. No further explanation. That night, the fire barely catches. You huddle around it with 6 others, all trying to dry different parts of their bodies in awkward silence. Someone offers a piece of meat. You accept. Then you ask what it is. He says, "Don't ask." You chew anyway. There's talk of splitting, off, of taking another path, of heading south instead of east. The priest says that's heresy. The knight says it's logic. The baker says nothing because he's asleep with his face in a loaf of stale bread. And somewhere in that night, someone whispers, "Do you think we're doing the right thing?" No one answers, because truth be told, even the most devout are starting to wonder if the Holy Land is actually reachable, or if it's just a metaphor for how far a human can walk before losing their mind. You fall asleep dreaming of your village, of cold beer, of the goat that used to headbutt your door at sunrise. You miss that goat more than most of the people here, and when you wake, the mud has dried just enough to crack. So you lace up what's left of your boots, or boot, and you start again. Because there's nothing else to do, because you've come too far to stop, because maybe, just maybe, around the next bend, there's something sacred waiting, or at least a dry patch of ground. You wake up to shouting. Not alarm, not an ambush. Just one man yelling at another about cheese. Apparently one of them stole it, or denied its existence. Or maybe they're debating whether mold is a blessing or a curse. Either way, it's too early and your back is screaming. The camp has changed overnight. Half the men are gone. Took a shortcut, they said. Through the forest. You've heard that one before. First shortcut on Crusade is usually just Latin, for likely full of wolves and regrettable decisions. You stretch or try to. Your muscles protest like peasants at a new tax. Today you're crossing another small village. The name has too many consonants, and no one agrees how to pronounce it. The locals watch you with a mix of suspicion and pity. One woman tosses a turnip at your group. You don't know if it's a gift or a warning. You catch it anyway. Food is food. You pass their church, stone, small, lopsided, but it has a bell that rings sweetly like something clean. One of your companions crosses himself, another spits. You just walk. Inside the village square, there's a notice nailed to a wooden post. You can't read it, but it has drawings. A man, a sword, a cross, and a lot of arrows. Maybe it's a welcome, maybe it's a threat, maybe it's medieval clip art. You keep moving. A young girl follows your group for a few minutes. She offers you a necklace made of bones and beads. You hesitate, then accept. She smiles. Her teeth are missing in the way that suggests too many winters. Not enough food. You hold on to the necklace, not because it's beautiful, but because it's something made by someone who's still human. The road turns upward, not dramatically, just enough to remind your calves who's in charge. A merchant cart lies abandoned off the trail. Its contents looted, its wheels snapped. You find a cracked mirror in the debris. You catch your reflection. You look like someone who's been slowly eaten by time. The night, walking beside you, launches into another lecture. This time it's about how Jerusalem is a metaphor, how this suffering purifies the soul. You nod. Then he steps in cow dung and swears so violently that 3 birds fall out of a tree. You stop for water at a stream that looks mostly clean. You boil it anyway. Experience has taught you not to trust anything that moves slower than you. A monk recites a psalm. A boy hums something tuneless. A woman sharpens a knife that looks too large for cooking and too small for comfort. The sun starts to dip. The light turns gold. It would be beautiful if you weren't covered in your own smell. And someone else's flea problem. That night the fire is stronger. Someone found dry wood. You eat something resembling soup. You ask no questions. You hear a story about a man who claims he saw an angel back near the river. The angel was barefoot and holding a goose. No one believes him, but no one laughs either. Because out here, even the strangest stories might be true. You curl up under your cloak. It smells like wet dog and despair. But it's warm. That counts for something. In the distance you hear wolves, or maybe dogs, or maybe just wind trying to sound interesting. You close your eyes and whisper a prayer, not to win, not to survive, but just to feel clean again. You dream of warm bread, of silent mornings, of the way your mother used to hum while stirring. Soup, and in that dream, the road ahead doesn't seem so long, not because it is shorter, but because for once it doesn't hurt to walk. Morning begins not with light, but with coughing, yours and everyone else's. The cold bites harder today. It doesn't nip, it gnaws. You feel it in your ribs between your teeth. Even your bones are shivering. Someone's already arguing about the map, which is funny because none of you actually have one. Just vague directions passed down like bedtime stories. Follow the sun. Stay east of the river. Don't trust the goats in that one valley. Today's path runs through a forest, which sounds poetic until you realize that forest here means a collection of damp, creaking skeletons, masquerading as trees. They loom over you like gossiping monks, thin, judgmental, whispering with every gust of wind. You step over roots like twisted fingers. A bird calls out, then stops mid-note. Even nature seems uncertain. There's a clearing up ahead. Inside, a single hut. No smoke, no sign of life. Just a door that's slightly ajar and a smell that says someone tried to cook something and it lost the fight. One of the braver soldiers calls out in Latin, no answer. He shrugs and steps inside. You hear a thud, then a yelp. Turns out the hut isn't abandoned. It's occupied by a goat, a very territorial, mildly possessed goat. It chases him out with the fury of a saint guarding relics. You all laugh. It feels good. Dangerous, but good. Like remembering you still have a soul. The path narrows, flanked by thorn bushes that snag like they have opinions. You stumble at one point, and when you look down, there's an old iron key half buried in the dirt. You pocket it. It's probably useless, or cursed, or both. Still, it's solid, real, and that counts for something. As the day grinds on, the group grows quieter. Legs ache, blisters bloom, jokes dry up. Hunger becomes a rhythm, a second heartbeat. You stop checking your pouch. It's empty anyway. You start eyeing tree bark in a way that makes you feel slightly ashamed. Just before dusk, you spot movement. Not soldiers, not merchants. Locals. A cluster of children staring from the edge of the woods. They're barefoot, but their eyes are older than yours. One holds a wooden doll, another has a sling. They don't speak, they don't smile. They just vanish into the brush like ghosts with chores. You set up camp near a half-frozen creek. It murmurs like someone trying not to cry. A man tries fishing with a bent spoon. He catches nothing but regret. You chew on a piece of stale bread. You'd forgotten you had. It tastes like wood and survival. That night, a storyteller from another camp joins yours. She's thin, wrapped in wool and silence. She doesn't ask for anything, just sits by the fire and starts talking. No name, no greeting, just a tale. She speaks of a crusader who walked for 10 years without reaching his destination, who forgot why he started, who built a garden in the desert and never left. She says he died happy, surrounded by roses that never bloomed. You don't know if it's meant to comfort you. It kind of does. Before sleep takes you, you pull out that iron key and turn it over in your hand. It's cold, solid, mysterious. And maybe, just maybe, it opens something better than a door. You close your eyes to the creaking of trees, the snap of firewood, and the soft breathing of strangers who for tonight feel almost like home. The next morning begins with a scream, not a battle cry, not a call to arms, just a scream, sharp, human, and uncomfortably close. You jolt awake, heart stumbling, and grab your dagger, even though you have no idea what you'd do with it. Rundusai. You men are scrambling to their feet. Someone knocks over a pot of water. It hisses in the fire like a warning. The screaming came from the stream. One of the younger boys, not a soldier, not even a squire, had wandered off to wash his face. Now he's on his knees, pointing, breath ragged. There's a body, half submerged, swollen, face gone soft and pale like wet leather. The boy says he thought it was a log until it blinked. No one touches it. No one speaks. Eventually, a knight steps forward, mutters a prayer, or maybe a curse, and drags the corpse to the shore with the tip of his sword. It's bloated, dressed in tattered crusader garb, but there's no cross. Just a thin silver chain around the neck. The knight snaps it off and pockets it. God provides, he says, and walks away. You stay back. Not out of fear, okay, partly fear, but also because something about the whole thing feels staged. Too neat, too placed. Like the body was meant to be found, like it's a message. You glance at the boy. He's staring at the water, jaw clenched, like it betrayed him. After that, nobody speaks for a while. The road that day is quiet, which you'd think would be a relief, but it's not. The silence is sticky, uneasy. Even the birds seem reluctant to fill it. You walk past a ruined chapel with vines for walls and no roof. Inside, a single candle burns on the altar. No wax, just flame. You decide not to think too hard about that. Later, You pass a line of pilgrims, barefoot, sunburned, wrapped in linen and sorrow. They carry relics in wooden boxes, none of which you're allowed to see. One of them is singing, a soft tune with no words. You ask what it means. He says it keeps the demons confused. You keep walking. Midday heat rolls in, dry and sharp like iron filings. A man collapses, just folds to the ground like a puppet cut loose. Nobody catches him. One look and you know he won't get back up. His face is blue around the edges. A priest kneels beside him and starts chanting, but it's more habit than hope you move on. Around dusk you reach a village, or what's left of one. Burnt frames of houses, ash-covered stones, a dead horse rotting in what used to be a square. The smell clings like smoke to your cloak, but there's a well cleaned cupboard. It feels wrong, still water is water. You lower a bucket and pull it up slowly, expecting bones, teeth, maybe a hand. Just water, clear, cold. You drink, and for one bright second you remember what it felt like to trust something. Then someone finds the chapel. It's hidden behind a tangle of olive trees, untouched by fire. Inside, frescoes still bright with color. A golden chalice and a man, alive, sitting in the pew like he never left. He looks at you, smiles. Do you know the hymn? He asks. You shake your head. He hums it for you, something old, in a language you half recognize. His voice is low, gentle. Then he vanishes, just like that. No smoke, no flash. 1 second he's there, the next he isn't. The pew is empty, cold. No one believes you, but a few others admit to feeling something, a warmth, a breeze, a whisper. You don't sleep that night, not because of fear, but because you're trying to remember the tune, and in the silence as you lie staring at the stars you hum it, barely, softly, and something, somewhere, hums back. Morning creeps in like a thief, grey, heavy, full of hesitation. You rise slowly, joints creaking, lips chapped. The hymn from last night still lingers in your chest like a half-remembered dream. No one talks about it. No one mentions the man in the chapel. It's easier that way. Your group moves on, feet dragging over gravel and regret. The map, if you can call it that, says the next waypoint is a fortress, not one you'll storm, one you'll beg entry into. The sun climbs. Higher, but it doesn't warm you. The air feels suspended like it's holding its breath. You get the sense that if you spoke too loud, the whole world would shatter. Around midday, a rider appears on the ridge. Not one of yours. Not anyone's, really. His armor is pieced together. Crusader chestplate, Saracen greaves, a Norman style. Helmet with no visor. His horse is foaming. He's holding a staff with no banner. Just a bird skull tied at the top. Everyone stops. He says nothing, just points, not at the road, not at you, but to the sky. Then he gallops off. You wait. For someone to laugh. No one does. The knight from earlier, the one who took the necklace, mutters an omen and spits. You don't ask what kind. By late afternoon you reach the fortress, or what's left of it. The outer wall is scorched, pitted with holes from catapults or something worse. The gate hangs open. A banner dangles upside down, its insignia smeared, and unreadable. It feels abandoned, but not empty. Inside there's a kind of quiet that isn't natural. It's curated, sculpted. You walk through the rubble like a guest at a ruined wedding. A chapel lies in pieces, its altar flipped, saints decapitated. You find an old tapestry under some stones, mostly intact, depicting St. George slaying. The dragon! But the dragon has a human face. No one wants to stay long, but water is low, and the well here hasn't been poisoned. Yet. Some of the men set up camp inside the great hall, though great might be too generous. You sleep against a cold column, wrapped in your cloak and doubt. That night someone finds a scroll, it's half-burned, written in Latin and Arabic. It mentions a treaty, a truce, forged in secret between enemies who knew the war would never end unless someone lied. The knight reads it out loud. His voice cracks. No one comments. Instead, someone pulls out a lute. No one remembers who brought it. The tune is slow, unfamiliar. Then someone starts to sing. A woman's voice, pure. Shaking, but there are no women in your camp. The music fades. You all look around. No one says a word. You wake before dawn. The fortress is colder now, emptier. A dog you don't recognize is sitting at the gate, staring into the darkness. It doesn't move when you pass, just watches. As you march on, you realize you're humming again. It's not the hymn from the chapel, it's something new, something that wasn't meant for you but now belongs to you anyway. You're not sure when you started counting footsteps, but by now it's the only rhythm that keeps you upright. Each step a beat, each breath a verse. The road ahead coils like a serpent, and you follow, because turning back would be more terrifying than whatever waits ahead. The heat has returned. Not the dry kind that peels your lips and cracks your boots, but the humid weight that sticks to your skin like wet linen. You pass a narrow stream, bubbling lazily over mossy rocks. A boy in your group dips his hand in and jerks back. Not from cold, but from something else. The water smells like copper, tastes like salt and something older. Someone jokes, "Holy tears," and no one laughs. You cross a meadow, though it's not really a meadow. It's more like a scar. Grass grows in patches, wildflowers poke out where arrows once fell. You spot a shattered shield half buried in the dirt. Its emblem is faded, but still there. A lion with two heads. You've never seen that before. Neither. Has anyone else? The road bends and suddenly eye walls, not ruins this time. Not bone-white foundations or broken turrets. Real walls, intact, tall, with guards. You freeze. So does everyone else. A banner flaps above the gate, a red cross over a black field. That's not your side, but it's not the enemy either. At least, not today. A man in a bronze chest plate approaches. He's wearing no helmet and his beard is braided with coins. He doesn't speak Latin, but he nods once and gestures for you to enter. You do. Inside the city, if it can be called that. Life buzzes like a swarm of bees. Market stalls spill into alleyways. Women shout prices in languages you don't understand. A monkey with painted cheeks dances to a drumbeat. Children run barefoot, some with wooden swords, others with real ones. You're led through the crowd like a thread through fabric. Faces watch you, some curious, others wary, and a few downright hostile. Eventually you reach a courtyard, and in the center, a man in white. Not a king, not a bishop, just a man. Clean robes, sharp eyes. He speaks softly, and when he speaks, so even the birds seem to listen. You don't catch all his words, but the tone is clear. He's offering a deal, not peace. Not alliance. Something older, more dangerous. Hospitality. He invites you to rest, to eat, to see the relic in the chamber below. You don't ask what relic. You don't want to know. But someone does. A younger knight, barely 20, accepts. He descends into the chamber with a lantern and comes back pale, holding something wrapped in cloth. He says nothing, sleeps with it under his head that night, refuses to speak in the morning. You leave the city before dawn. No goodbyes, no promises. But something follows you out. Not footsteps, not sound. Just the feeling that part of you stayed, behind, watching from a high window. The next night, someone swears the relic is whispering. You tell yourself it's just wind, even though there is no wind. You wake to the sound of metal scraping stone. For a moment, you're unsure whether it's a dream or the beginning of a nightmare. Then it comes again, steady, rhythmic, like someone sharpening a blade in the dark. You sit up. Your breath fogs. The air. It's colder than it should be. The camp is quieter than usual. Fires burn low. A few figures shift under blankets, but most are gone. You spot your captain near the edge of the rocks, whispering with two others. They glance at you, then look away. Something's changed. You lace your boots and step into the grey morning. The sun is up, technically, but it's hidden behind a sheet of clouds the color of old parchment. It feels like the kind of day that shouldn't have a name. You follow the sound. It leads you to a man seated on a slab of granite, dragging a whetstone slowly across his sword. Back and forth, sparks occasionally spit off the blade and vanish in the mist. He looks up. "You feel it too?" he asks. You nod, though you're not sure what it is. He points behind you. You turn. There, rising out of the haze, are the bones of a fortress. Not ruins, bones. Towers half sunk into the hillside, windows like empty eyes, walls that seem to lean away from themselves. Moss grows in streaks. Vines creep up through cracks. This used to be holy ground, he mutters. You wonder what that means anymore. By mid-morning the order comes. Move in. Not attack, not claim, just investigate. You join the column winding toward the gates. The city. Closer you get, the more wrong it feels. The air smells like wet iron and something sweet, like fruit just past rotting. Inside, the fortress is silent. Dust muffles your footsteps. Murals cover the walls, once brilliant, now faded into ghostly outlines. You see lions with halos, knights with eyes like stars. A figure with wings holding a chalice and blood, not fresh but not forgotten. In one chamber, you find a baptismal font filled with cracked arrowheads. In another, a statue of a saint. Except someone's carved a second face on the back of his head. You touch it without meaning to. The stone is warm. You step into what was once a dining hall. Long tables still stand. Cups overturned. A rat scurries across a bench, dragging a strip of cloth that looks suspiciously like a rosary. No one speaks. It's not fear, not exactly, it's reverence. Or maybe guilt. Then you hear it. A sound like distant singing. You follow it. Of course you do. Up a spiraling stairwell with steps worn concave. At the top, a bell tower. And inside, no bell. Just a woman. She's not real. You know that immediately. She flickers at the edges, like heat rising off stone. But her voice is real, soft, ancient, beautiful. She turns, and she's wearing your mother's face. You stumble back, trip, nearly fall down the stairs. When you return to the courtyard, no one mentions what they saw. But you notice that everyone walks faster now, carries their weapons tighter, doesn't look over their shoulders. That night, someone hangs a charm of garlic and bone over the main tent. No one laughs. The fortress disappears behind you like a breath you didn't know you. We're holding and still the singing lingers, but only when you're alone. You don't sleep that night. Not well anyway. Every time your eyes close, you see her. Not the real woman, not that there was one, but the shape she wore, the voice she used. Your mother's face framed in medieval braids, whispering in a language that didn't sound quite human. When dawn breaks, it's almost a relief, almost. The camp is already moving. Orders have come, not from your captain, not even from your commander. These came from someone higher, much higher, and with them a new assignment, escort duty. You groan inwardly, already picturing the worst. A noble too soft to tie their own shoes, or a priest who insists on reciting Latin through every meal. But you're wrong. This one isn't soft, and he doesn't speak Latin. He's a monk. Sort of. His robes are plain but torn, dyed a color somewhere between rust and dried blood. His eyes are sharp, his fingers long, and he doesn't walk so much as glide. You try to catch his name, but everyone just calls him the Archivist. He carries no weapons, only scrolls. Dozens of them packed into tubes strapped across his back like a scholarly porcupine. One of your squad mates jokes that if you threw him off a cliff, he'd float down safely on parchment wings. No one laughs too. Hard because there's something off about him. He hums as he walks. A low, steady melody. Never loud, never fast. Just enough to notice. It sounds like a lullaby. Or a warning. You travel for 2 days without incident. The archivist rarely sleeps, eats only figs and dried fish, and never removes his hood. Once, you catch a glimpse beneath it. Just for a second you wish you hadn't. It's not his face that's wrong, or it's the way it doesn't seem to belong to one person. Like he's wearing expressions that were stitched together from different lives, he finally speaks on the 3rd day. Do you believe, he asks without turning his head, that history can be infectious? You pause. Ask what he means. Stories, he says. Ideas, beliefs, they spread, they cling, they change those who carry them. You nod slowly, unsure whether he's asking a question or issuing a diagnosis. He continues, the Crusades aren't a war. They're a fever. You want to say something clever, but nothing comes. That night, he invites you to sit beside his fire. You don't want to, not really, but your curiosity is stronger than your fear. He unrolls one of the scrolls. It's not written in Latin, not Greek, not anything you recognize. The script writhes slightly as you look at it, like ink that hasn't dried, or lines that resent being read. This, he says softly, was taken from a church that no longer exists, not because it was destroyed, because it was removed. You ask what that means. He just smiles. Then, very gently, he places the scroll back in its tube. You should sleep, he says. Tomorrow we reach the bones. You lie awake for hours staring at the stars, wondering what that means. The bones? Of what? And somewhere, in the dark, the archivist hums. The same melody. The same warning. Morning arrives with a stillness that feels inappropriate. Like the air itself knows what's coming and has decided to brace for it. You wake not to bird song or the clatter of armor, but to silence, thick and unmoving. Even the archivist has stopped humming. You rise, stretch, and immediately regret looking east because there they are, the bones. You expected ruins. Maybe a collapsed cathedral or some crumbling Roman foundation. What you see instead is worse. They aren't ruins. Not exactly. They're ribs. Dozens of massive, stone-carved ribs arcing out of the earth like the skeleton of a beast too big for memory. Each rib is the height of a cathedral bell tower, worn smooth by centuries of wind, but still sharp enough to cast knife-edged shadows across the valley. They form a half-circle, not a full skeleton, as if whatever it was had been swallowed by the earth mid-scream. The archivist pauses at the edge. The Basilica of Ash, he whispers. You blink. You've never heard of it. No one has, he replies before you can even ask. Not anymore. Your party doesn't enter at first. There's an unspoken hesitation, like approaching the ribs might wake the creature that once wore them. Eventually, your commander gives the order. You move forward in pairs. The bones groan. You swear they groan, but that's impossible, isn't it? Inside, the ground is soft, not with grass or moss, but with centuries of ash. It rises around your boots in clouds of grey, swallowing footprints almost as soon as they're made. The archivist kneels beside one of the ribs. He presses his ear to it. Listens. You try not to stare. Then he speaks again. These bones remember. That's when you realize something chilling. There's no wildlife here. No insects, no birds, not even worms in the ash. It's as if the earth here has refused to host life since whatever happened. The structure at the center is what's left of the basilica, or perhaps just the suggestion of one. 4 crumbling walls, no roof, a shattered altar draped in vines so pale they look like veins. The archivist begins to chant, not loudly, not theatrically, just under his breath, a continuous stream of syllables that ripple the air around him. You ask what he's saying. He doesn't stop chanting, but he answers. It's a ledger. A what? A record, not of people, of intentions. You don't understand, he clarifies. Every prayer ever whispered here, every vow broken, every secret kept. He finishes the chant. For a moment everything is still. Then a sound. Not thunder, not wind, whispers. Thousands of them. They echo through the ribs like wind in a pipe organ, all speaking at once in languages you don't know and tones that aren't quite human. You drop to your knees, not out of fear, not exactly, but because standing feels like an insult to something older than courage. The archivist touches your shoulder. Some say, he murmurs, that the first crusade began not with a speech in France, but with a breath inside these bones. You shiver. Later, as your company makes camp just outside the ribcage, you lie awake staring at the stars through curved silhouettes of ancient stone. And you wonder, what kind of god needs bones this big? And more. Importantly, is it sleeping or waiting? You don't remember falling asleep. You just remember waking, not to light but to movement. A flicker, a shuffle, a breath that wasn't yours. You sit up. The campfire is still glowing faintly, but most of the others are still asleep. Only one figure is moving, the archivist. He's walking and slowly, deliberately bumped toward the basilica again, his cloak trailing behind him like mist. You follow. Of course you do. The bones loom larger in the moonlight, less like architecture, more like an accusation. The archivist doesn't look back, doesn't slow. You quicken your pace to catch him just as he reaches the altar again, or what's left of it. He places a small flat object on the stone. You peer over his shoulder. It's a tile, glazed in blue, chipped on the edges, but unmistakably old. The center bears a handprint, not a drawing, an actual imprint burned into the clay. You ask quietly what it is. He replies, just as quietly, a vow. Then he points to the walls. You look and realize something that shouldn't be possible. Each wall is filled with tiles, hundreds, maybe thousands. Some shattered, others pristine, each with a handprint. No two alike. The archivist continues. Every crusader who came through here before marching east left one. The idea was, when they died, their vow would remain. You shudder. The walls don't feel like stone anymore. They feel like skin, scarred and sacred. You ask what vow he made. He doesn't answer. Instead, he kneels and places his palm against the newest tile. It glows faintly, just for a second, then fades. You feel like you've intruded on something private, sacred maybe, and start to step back. But the archivist rises, looks at you, and speaks. It's not just blood that binds men to war. It's promises. And promises echo longer than swords ever ring. The wind picks up, brushing ash across your boots. You glance at the ribs again. They seem to shimmer in the moonlight, almost deflects. You blink. No, probably just a trick of the light. When you return to camp, you can't sleep. You lie on your back and stare at the stars until they blur, then fade and finally give way to dawn. In the morning, no one mentions the tile. Not the archivist, not your commander, not even the priest who used to complain about every cold meal and every lost boot. But when you pass the altar one last time, something is different. Your own palm itches, and for reasons you can't explain, you find yourself pressing it gently, reverently, against the stone. Nothing glows, nothing hums. But as you pull away, you swear the stone feels just a little, warmer than it should, and you leave the bones behind, but not really, because now they're part of you and you haven't even seen Jerusalem yet. You thought you'd be walking into glory. Instead, you walk into flies, big ones, the kind that hover with too much confidence like they own the battlefield before the battle even starts. They hum as you cross the field, not singing, not buzzing, but judging. Or maybe that's just your imagination. You're not even in the Holy Land yet, just on the edge, a place whose name sounds like the start of a prayer and the end of a threat. The hills here roll gently, but every crest hides something. A small shrine, a half-dug trench, a cluster of tents that weren't there yesterday. You're marching behind a wagon today, not just any wagon. This one belongs to the scribes. You didn't know Crusades had scribes, did you? They do. And not the kind who sit at desks with ink-stained fingers and debate Latin verbs. No, these ones wear armor, chainmail flecked with dried wax and melted candle stubs. They write on parchment stretched across their knees as they bounce along the road. One of them turns to you. "Want your name remembered?" he asks, holding up a quill sharpened like a dagger. You shake your head. Politely. Sort of. He shrugs and goes back to writing. The truth is, these scribes aren't just writing prayers or battle orders. They're writing the future. At least that's what they believe. Every name they record, every date they ink, every glorious charge they describe, it all becomes more real than the mud under your boots. You glance around. Half the men look like they haven't slept in days. One limps. Another is picking at a rash that seems far too aggressive to be normal. A few have rosaries looped through their belts like weapons. You hear snatches of conversation. Said the bridge was cursed. Or boiled their horses rather than leave them. Last night I saw a light, I swear. The crusade isn't a march. It's a fever. And some days it feels like you're sweating out a dream that belongs to someone else. The wagons. Stop not for a battle, not even for food. They stop because a monk has seen an omen. You gather around like bored schoolchildren. The monk stands barefoot on a small rise, holding a dead bird in both hands. "It flew against my chest," he says. "Twice then fell." He holds it up like a trophy. Everyone watches. No one speaks. Finally, someone in the back mutters, "It's just a bird." The monk doesn't flinch. He stares at the crowd and says calmly, "Then why does it have a red thread tied around its leg?" Gasps. Murmurs. A few cross themselves. You squint. There it is, a thread, thin and crimson, wrapped once, tied neatly. Some say it's a signal. Others say it's a curse. The monk says it's a message from heaven, though he's not clear on what the message actually is. The march. Pauses for 2 hours while arguments erupt over whether to bury the bird, burn it, or feed it to the falcons. Eventually, it ends up under a pile of rocks. You walk on, and the scribes keep writing. You notice one of them doodling, just a little knight on the edge of the parchment, sword raised, head too big. He sees you looking and smirks. "Even legends need editors," he says. By nightfall, the fields are behind you, replaced by olive trees and sharper hills. You sleep in a grove under a canopy of chirping insects and muttered prayers. Before you close your eyes, you glance up at the stars. You wonder who's writing this part, and whether they're getting your name right. Morning smells like metal, not the clanging kind, more like the taste of a coin pressed against your tongue. The air is dry, biting, and every breath scratches just a little. You wake to the sound of sharpening, a rasping rhythm of stone, on steel. Somewhere nearby, someone's already practicing thrusts in the dirt, grunting like each jab is personal. You roll to your side and spot the old knight. You've seen him before. Broad-scarred and moving like a man who used to win fights with youth, but now wins them with memory. He's training a boy, maybe 12, maybe 15. It's hard to tell. The boy's helmet looks too big, his arms too thin. But his grip, fires steady. His eyes are scared in the right way, so not frozen but focused. The knight barks a phrase, "Don't swing, place." You don't know if it's a lesson or a warning. You rise, stretch, wince. Your left foot still aches from yesterday's uneven trail. Someone offers you a crust of bread. You nod thanks. It's stale but tastes like something real in a world that's been melting around you. Today you're heading toward a fortress, not the kind with flags and towers. This one's a ruin. Half swallowed by the hillside, its stones blackened. From fire, its gates leaning like they've been punched by giants. It wasn't Crusader built, it was older, Byzantine maybe. Or even Roman, depending on which bearded man you ask. The plan is simple. Take shelter, find water, rest the horses. The execution? Not so simple. As you approach, the walls feel uneasy, not haunted, just aware, like they're watching to see if you'll make the same mistakes as the last army that passed through. Inside, the courtyard is a battlefield of weeds and bones, not fresh, just scattered echoes of armor, buckles, broken wood. A single sandal rests atop a stone burned and cracked. Someone died in that, someone says behind you. You nod. The knight and the boy enter the chapel. It's barely a building anymore. Just two walls and a crossbeam covered in lichen. The boy kneels. The knight doesn't. He stands by the door, eyes scanning the hills. He's not here to pray. You wander further in and stumble across a tiled floor. The pattern is faint but beautiful. Blue and green swirls that twist like waves. Someone spent months laying these, and now they're a foundation for dust. A scholar nearby murmurs, "They say this was once a bathhouse." You glance around. It feels wrong, too dry, too open. But who are you to argue? You look down and spot something half buried. A coin, old, worn, its markings unfamiliar. You show it to the scholar. He frowns, squints. Greek, maybe Phoenician. You shrug. A coin's a coin. But he stares at it like it's whispering secrets. Meanwhile, the boy screams. You all rush to the chapel. He's standing now, sword drawn, pointing at the far wall. There's nothing there, except you step closer. Painted behind a crumbling veil of plaster is a mural. Faded reds and golds. A figure cloaked in fire, flanked by wolves. Not Christian. Not even close. The knight curses. He grabs the boy's wrist. This place is not ours, he says, voice tight. We rest and leave. Some argue. It's shelter. It's safe enough. It's just paint. But the old knight doesn't argue. He simply sharpens his blade and stares at the hill. The scribe from yesterday, the one who doodles, appears beside you. He holds a new parchment. This time, the drawing is different. Not a knight, but the boy, smaller than scale, eyes wide, sword trembling. Thought it might be important, the scribe says. You don't answer. You just sit beside the ruined wall, press your back against the warm stone, and close your eyes. Tonight, you sleep with your boots on, just in case the painting decides to move. Dawn doesn't break. It creeps. A thin haze of lavender light spreads slowly across the ruined fortress, brushing each cracked stone with the gentlest of fingers. The mural is still there, of course, untouched, but the air feels heavier now. Like the walls have absorbed your breath, your thoughts, your doubts. You stand, stretch, your shoulders ache from sleeping upright. Someone nearby is coughing, the dry kind from dust and age. A group is already breaking camp, tying bundles, folding thin cloths into thinner sacks. No one speaks of the painting. No one mentions the boy's scream. It's been swallowed. Like the sandals and the bathhouse and the blue tiles no one believes were real, you head out. The path snakes downhill into a shallow valley. The sky is growing hot, and the air starts to shimmer. You squint toward the horizon and catch a line of movement, like ants, but not ants. Pilgrims, not crusaders, not soldiers. Just people, barefoot, robed, some carrying wooden crosses or statues of saints wrapped in linen. Their feet are bloody, their eyes glassy. You pass them slowly, one by one. A woman whispers something you can't understand. A boy offers you a flower made of straw. A man, eyes blank, hums a tune older than language. You nod at each. This is a different kind of war. Soon the road opens into a strange grove. Palm trees and olive branches twist together overhead, blocking the worst of the sun. In the center there's a spring, clear, cold, impossibly clean. A blessing, maybe, or a trap. You kneel to drink. The water tastes like stone and mint. A bearded man beside you chuckles. They say this spring was dug by a prophet, or a donkey. Depends who you ask. You smile, wipe your mouth. The donkey version feels more believable. Today. Further along, you stumble upon a small shrine, not grand, just a stack of stones, a few broken tiles, and an iron ring hammered into a tree. Offerings litter the base, bones, feathers, coins bent nearly in half. A girl lights a candle and places a thorn beside it. You ask her what it's for. She says, "So the road forgets I walked on it." You don't know what that means, but it sticks with you. Past the shrine, the landscape shifts again. Hills become ridges. The ground grows darker. You're entering a burned village. The air smells like ash, even though the fires died weeks ago. Some buildings are still smoking, as if refusing to admit defeat. A dog limps through the rubble, silent. A crusader ahead of you mutters, "We didn't do this." You don't believe him, no one does. In the center of the square, there's a stone well blackened at the rim. A single rope hangs from its pulley, frayed and snapped halfway down. Something rustles inside. You lean in, not too close, just enough to hear a drip. 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 A monk pulls you away. He shakes his head. "Don't listen too long," he warns. Some wells echo things they were never told. You nod. File that next to paintings that watch you and springs dug by donkeys. It's one of those days. By late afternoon, you reach a makeshift camp on the edge of a salt flat. It's blinding. White as bone, flat as glass. Crusaders shield their eyes with cloth, soaking the fabric in water and looping it around their foreheads. Someone suggests skipping the salt route. Another argues it's the fastest. Someone else says the salt is cursed. You vote with your feet, and so does everyone else. Across the flats, the heat distorts the horizon, turning it into a dance of false rivers and phantom towers. You squint, and for a moment, just a moment, you swear you see ships. Not in the sky, not on the ground, somewhere. In between. Some say the dead sail over this land, a voice mutters beside you. You don't ask who said it, or when. You just keep walking, and with each step, you can feel the salt clinging to your boots, your ankles, your lungs. Every breath feels like licking a coin. Every shadow looks like a memory, and every thought ends with the same question. Why are you still walking? The answer doesn't come, but your feet move anyway. You wake before sunrise, not because of noise, or hunger or fear. You wake because the silence has changed. It's no longer the silence of sleep or stone or secrets. It's the kind of quiet that arrives just before something breaks. Like the air is holding its breath, and you're the only one who noticed. You sit up slowly, your body aches. Your skin is raw from salt. Your eyes burn. But none of that matters. Not now, because there's something ahead. It's faint, flickering, like a single flame in a cathedral of shadow. But it's there, on the horizon, a glint of something human-made. And in a landscape carved by wind and ghosts, anything human feels like a miracle. You walk, no words, no companions, just the rhythm of your feet on the crusted ground. By mid-morning you reach it, a chapel, tiny, crumbling. The stones look older than the Crusades, older than Rome, older than language. But someone has cleaned it recently. A palm-frond broom leans by the door. Fresh ash marks the altar inside, and beside the chapel a grave. New. Marked not with a cross, but with a circle of blackened thorns. You kneel beside it. There's no name, no date, just a worn ribbon tied to a wooden stake. The kind of ribbon that once bound a child's hair. You stay there for a while, long enough for the sun to move, long enough for the salt wind to change direction, long enough to forget, briefly, why you ever picked up a sword. Behind you, someone clears their throat. You turn. It's a woman in traveler's robes, dark blue, nearly black, embroidered with silver thread. She has the eyes of someone who's lost more than she remembers, and the voice of someone who's made peace with it. She offers you bread, you accept. She asks no questions, tells no stories, just sits beside you on the chapel steps eating in silence. Birds circle overhead, though you never see them land. At one point she says, "This used to be a garden." You nod. Of course it did. She stands, brushes the dust from her robes and disappears into the salt. You don't follow. You wait until the light softens again, until the wind grows warmer, not colder, until the ghosts decide you're not worth bothering today, and then you walk, not toward a city or a camp or a castle, just forward, past thorn groves and prayer stones, past dried riverbeds and shattered shields, past memories too heavy to carry, until the path fades beneath your feet, and all that remains is sky. You lie down. The salt embraces you. The stars blink open, one by one, like shy candles in a dark room. And you exhale, finally. Because here had in this brutal, scorched, haunted world, you found something softer. Not peace, exactly, but stillness, and it hums like a lullaby written in forgotten tongues. The ground shifts gently beneath you, the air grows thick with dreams, and your last thought, before sleep finally takes you, is a whisper. Let someone else fight tomorrow. You've already walked far enough. Now close your eyes, let the dust settle, let the stars tell the next story.